Hi Stampers, Rose Grunwald here coming at you from my stamping studio in New Holstein, Wisconsin, and today I am going to walk you through step by step how I made this adorable, crazy adorable birthday card using the We Must Celebrate stamp set that's in the Occasions catalog right now, the Stampin Up Spring catalog. I'm just going to get started right away. The first thing I want to show you here is this We Must Celebrate stamp set. It's got a lot of great sentiments, but what we're going to be using for this card are these super cute animals and the We Must Celebrate sentiment from that. I'm also going to be using my Stampin Blends and show you how, I'm going to bring this closer here, how I created this shading with my blends. It's super easy and it makes you look like a professional colorer, so I really love that. Move this card out of the way. When you're using your Stampin Blends, you're going to be stamping your image first in your Memento ink when you're coloring with these blends. So I find when I've got a larger stamp like this, it's easier for me, especially with these Memento pads that are a little bit smaller than the regular Stampin' Up pads. I like to ink up my stamp with my pad instead of going the other way around. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that, get some nice firm pressure in the middle because this raccoon has a mask here and you want that to be a solid black. Now, I'm not going to have you watch me color the entire group of animals here. I've actually already done that for you, but I am going to show you how I did the blending technique on the bear. It'll be the easiest one to show you since he's the biggest. So, the Stampin' Blends, I'm just going to show you the colors I used for the animals first. They come in two tones. So here for the bear, I used light crumb cake and dark crumb cake. I also used that for the squirrel. Now for the rabbit and the raccoon, I went with the gray. And I used, let's see, what are these called? Light Smoky Slate and Dark Smoky Slate. And for their noses and a few details, I just used the dark pink pirouette marker. And then the really cool thing about these blends is you can also get a color lifter, which is super awesome because I've been known to color outside of the lines from time to time. And that color lifter will just take that mistake away like it never even happened. So these markers have two ends. They've got kind of a broad tipped end for filling in bigger area, and then they've got this fine tipped end. I'm going to use my fine tip end because this isn't a lot of space that I'm working with, and we've got some detail in here. So actually, the first thing I did on the bear, and I'm finding I like to do it this way because I tend to like to blend with my lighter marker. So I tend to start with the dark shade. And so what I did on this bear is I just did some little bit of outlining around his ears and his face, just along the inside edge of the stamped image. And then I also did some highlighting around his belly. And what I'm going to call kind of the creases of his body here and his feet. So the reason I'm kind of going around what I'm calling the creases of his body is I like to think about the light that would be on the subject if you were taking a picture. And in these areas, the light is probably not going to hit it. And so it's going to cast some darker shadows. And so I put a little bit of darker color in there. Now, once I'm finished with the dark, I'm going to come in here with my light and do my regular coloring. Now, at first, I'm just roughly coloring to get some shading out there. And I'm going to come back through when I'm done and fill in the gaps as I blend. Now, I already messed up, so I actually have an opportunity to show you this color lifter. You see under his chin, I went outside the lines right here. All I do is take my color lifter, color over it, and like magic, it is gone. Looks like I never went outside the lines. I love that. Okay, so I did my basic shading, and now I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to blend the dark towards the light. So here's where I come in. And to blend these markers, the colors, or the layers, if you will, have to be wet. So I'm coming back in over the darker outline that I put in, and as I do that, it's blending with my light, and my light is also going over the top of the light I already shaded, and it's changing that color a bit as well, making just a shade darker. So I'm going to do the same thing with his body. I'm blending now from the dark to the light. And anywhere that I want it to remain light, I'm not really coloring over it a lot in this second pass through. So you can see as I'm going, I'm bringing some of this dark color towards the light. And as I color and get that dark wet again with the alcohol marker here, it allows me to blend it towards the light shades. That is super simple. Now, the one thing I did do is I added just a little touch of pink around the belly of my bear. And then I came in and I blended that. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong blender here. With my light, again, back towards the dark. So we've just got a hint of that pink in there. Super easy. And seriously, it makes me look like a professional color. It was that simple. Now, the next thing I did, you notice this stamp has all these animals all together in one big group. Well, I used my handy dandy snippers to snip them apart so I could spread them out on this card. Now, I'm telling you, if you do not have a pair of Stampin' Snips, you absolutely need to get them. These things are awesome, and I'm using them all the time. They come with this really safe cover, and so that's nice because I can kind of slip it into the bin that I have them in, and it doesn't get stuck on anything. So the best thing about these snips is that the tip is very pointed. It can get into the tiniest of spaces, which makes it great for fussy cutting. So what I actually did was went through and I fussy cut this bear away from the other animals in our group of animal friends here. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me cut this entire bear out, but I do want to show you how awesome this tiny tip is. It is absolutely perfect for getting into these spaces. See how sharp that is? Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to have you watch me cut all those out. I actually did it for you already. And what I did was I cut the bear and the bunny separately, but I kept the squirrel and the raccoon together. So I'm just going to set these aside here. Okay. The next thing I did was I embossed, here's our card again, I embossed this layer with the new, I think it's called Simple Stripes embossing folder. It's a big one, comes through really nice, and I actually already embossed a piece of Whisper White. This layer is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm going to set that aside as well. We're going to get to constructing our card here. My card base is Whisper White thick cardstock. I love this for card bases. It holds up really well to layers and keeps it nice and sturdy. So this is just a half sheet of cardstock. So it's going to be this is 5 1/2. And then I score it at 4 1/4. So this is just a piece cut in half the short way. All right. I do score my Whisper White cardstock because it's thicker, and I just find that gives it a nice crisp edge. That's another thing. A bone folder is awesome for making those crisp edges on your cards. Now, the next layer was I came in and I cut a oval die cut out of my stitched shaped framelit dies. And if you don't have these are a really good investment. They come with squares, circles, and ovals, and the one I used is the largest oval. And the other die cutting I did on this card was with the Happy Birthday Thinlits die. Would you believe that this is actually my first time that I use this die, and I love it? I'm going to be using it tons more because this is a simple, I love big sentiments, and it makes it really easy to put a card together. I cut this out in the, I think it's shimmery silver cardstock. I love the shine, and it's going to be really bright with these festive animals. So let me grab my layers here. We're going to start putting this card together. Behind my animals, I have a piece of burlap ribbon, and then we've got this mini, what are these called? Oh, the mini sequins, and I used black. I really wanted to use black to highlight the outline of these animals. So I didn't want this ribbon to go anywhere while I was making my card. So now you can't get this stapler anymore through Stampin' Up, but it is one of the pieces that I absolutely love in my stash. So I'm just going to come in so that that doesn't go anywhere and just staple this down. Now, you might notice that my cardstock from this stripes ripped a little bit. I was a little too rough with it. That's not a big deal because I'm actually going to right now glue it down to my card base, and when I glue it down, you aren't even going to be able to tell. So I use this multi-purpose liquid glue. And, oh, I got a lot on there. The reason I like to use the liquid glue is I feel like when I've got embossed layers like this with a lot of dimension, it makes it easier to put them where I want and they're a little more secure on my card base. Plus, as you can see, when it comes time to center those puppies, it doesn't dry immediately, so you've got a little bit of time to kind of move it around. All right, so we've got our layer down, and the next thing I want to do here is secure this a bit more so I can get my next layer in here. So I just came in with some tape, and I taped it right down behind where I'm going to put my stitched oval framelit. No one will ever see this tape, and you're actually going to save your sanity doing this so that these pieces aren't kind of flopping all over for you. Okay, so I've got my stitched oval framelit here, and to adhere my happy birthday to it, I'm going to use the fine tip glue pen. This is awesome for really intricate dies, and I really only the middle 3 letters of happy are touching this die piece. So I just put the glue on those and then matched them up with the birthday sentiment underneath. So we're going to come in here, and I'm going to stick the happy birthday over the top. Oh geez. I have some glue on my fingers, so it's making it a little bit sticky. I'm just gonna wipe that off. Okay, the next thing is I wanted my little rabbit peeking out over here and the bear peeking out over here. So I just pay attention to where I want those animals placed, and I stick a little bit of glue underneath so they can tuck right in there. Hold that down to get it dry, and I'm going to come back in and do the same thing with my bear. You don't need very much of this liquid glue, so I'm trying to be really careful not to overdo it. And then the squirrel and the raccoon, I never snipped apart because they fit just perfectly right here at the bottom portion of this layer. Adorable, right? So now I want this to be popped up on top of my ribbon, like so. Oh, before I do that, you notice it's kind of hard to see, but we have just the lightest touch of black to coordinate it with this black mini sequin ribbon. So the way I did that was with some marker flicking. I've got my black marker and I've got my cap, and I just lightly flick it across the card. That is a really nice finishing touch that I put on a lot of my cards. I think it adds just a pop of color, especially for these white on white projects. So now I'm going to come in here with my dimensionals. Oh, my dog's in here to say hello. And I wanted to make sure the animals stayed secured as well. So this is where my mini dimensionals come in handy. And I'm just going to stick those on my animals. Yeah. Hi, Scout. My puppy's here saying hello. Okay, so we're going to adhere this. Oh, my cat and dog are having a little moment over there. Just pull these off. I use a lot of dimensionals on here. You probably don't need this many, but I wanted to make sure mine was ultra secure, apparently. All right, and so I'm going to center this where I would like it. And stick it down on my card. And then the last touch is I came in with the We Must Celebrate sentiment. Now, what I love doing with these smaller words, and I've done it on a few of my cards, actually, if you're watching my blog, I like to snip them apart and then layer them on the card. So I'm going to cut that out, and then I cut between each word, and then I can pop those up on my card. So my mini dimensionals come in handy again here. And then I'm just going to stick them in this white space in the bottom corner. See, I like that I can pick these apart like this, and then I can move them around any way I like. Let's go. I like it like that. And then all you have left to do is trim the edges of your ribbon, like so. And your card is finished. Isn't that adorable? Now I'm going to put the dimensions for everything I used out on my blog. Make sure you check it out at countrycardsbyrose.com.